I want you to picture something for a second. Picture that classic triumphant graduation day.
The big one.
Right, the big one. You're standing there in the cap and gown and the sun is shining, and you are holding the heavy piece of paper you just spent years of your life and probably a lot of money earning.
Yeah. Way too much money, usually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have the degree, you have the raw talent, you have absolute mountains of ambition. But then Monday morning rolls around, the celebration fades, and you're staring down the barrel of a major, terrifying problem.
It's a reality show.
The reality check, yeah. You are suddenly facing unemployment or severe underemployment. And it's not because you lack potential. It's because you're missing practical skills.
Yeah.
You don't have mentors in the industry, and you certainly do not have the capital to get your own ideas off the ground.
Right.
It's a massive dilemma that so many of you listening right now have either faced yourself or watched your friends struggle with. It's that classic experience paradox. You need experience to get a job, but you need a job to get experience.
It is the ultimate gap between academic theory and real-world application.
Yeah.
You spend 3 to 4 years learning how to memorize frameworks and pass exams, but navigating the actual unforgiving market is, it's a completely different survival skill.
Oh, absolutely.
A textbook does not teach you how to negotiate a contract or pivot when your first product completely flops.
Right. So what does this all mean? How do we actually fix that? Well, that is exactly what we're tackling in today's deep dive.
It's a big one.
It is. We are looking at a massive initiative called the Africa-Caribbean Studentpreneur and Innovation Hub Challenge 2026, or as it's officially abbreviated, AfcaSPIH 2026.
AfcaSPIH.
We have our hands on the official AfcaSPIH 2026 program guidelines, as well as their internal FAQ documents. And our mission for this deep dive is to decode exactly how this ambitious 6-month venture development program plans to completely transform students across Africa and the Caribbean from being, passive job seekers into active job creators.
It's a phenomenal mission. And it's incredibly timely, too. Looking through these source documents, the thing that jumps out is just how methodically they've designed this.
Yeah.
They aren't just throwing a few grants at students and wishing them luck. They are engineering a comprehensive ecosystem from the ground up.
And as always, I am thrilled to have you here to help me look under the hood of this initiative. You always know how to break down these massive frameworks and see what makes them actually tick.
Glad to be here.
So let's start with the groundwork. The core problem outlined in our sources is that thousands of young, brilliant people graduate in Africa and the Caribbean every single year, but the standard entrepreneurship programs out there are just, they're failing them completely.
Completely.
The critique from the AfcaSPIH documents is that traditional programs are way too theoretical. They're poorly structured, or they are entirely disconnected from actual real-world funding.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the frustration makes perfect sense. How many times have you heard of a university business plan competition where the grand prize is just a framed certificate, a firm handshake from the dean, and maybe like a small gift card?
Right, a $50 bookstore voucher or something.
Exactly. The theory, it's fine. But if you don't connect that academic theory to real capital and actual market exposure, the idea just dies on the vine. It becomes a fun academic exercise, not a business. That is the exact gap the architects of AfcaSPIH are trying to close.
Okay, let's talk about those architects. Who is actually stepping up to fix this? Because running a cross-regional, heavily funded incubator is not a small task.
No, it's massive. The lead implementer here is an organization called Ibon World. They're a youth-focused development organization, and their specific mandate is advancing entrepreneurship, leadership, and innovation across Africa and the Caribbean.
I have to pause you there, though. A youth development organization sounds great on paper, but organizing a massive financial accelerator requires serious logistical muscle. Are they actually equipped to handle a 6-month venture pipeline?
It's a very fair question, and the documents highlight a track record that proves they actually are. For instance, the sources specifically note that in 2020, Ibon World was instrumental in supporting Ghanaians who were stranded in Lebanon.
Wait, rescuing stranded citizens? What does crisis evacuation have to do with teaching university students how to build a business? That feels like a totally different skill set.
At first glance, yes, it sounds like a purely humanitarian mission. But look at it from a logistical standpoint. You're coordinating international travel, managing crisis communications across borders, and dealing with intense government bureaucracy.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Right, all under immense pressure and tight timelines. If an organization can execute that smoothly, organizing a 6-month training accelerator for 1,000 students, is entirely within their operational wheelhouse.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
And they also hosted the African Young Entrepreneurs and Culture Festival in 2024, and they're already slated to host the Women in Entrepreneurship Summit in 2025. They know how to move people, manage resources, and deliver on a large scale.
That makes a lot of sense when you frame it as an exercise in complex logistics. And they aren't doing this alone either. The ecosystem of partners they've pulled together is huge.
Very heavy hitters.
Yeah. We are talking about the National Union of Ghana Students, or NEGS. Then you have Truly Born Global OMI Management and Alternative Investments Board of Literacy, Inc. and Layden Company, Ltd. That is a massive web of education, investment, and management organizations. But honestly, isn't that a lot of cooks in the kitchen? Why bring in so many corporate partners for a student competition?
This raises an important question about motives. Why does this specific coalition matter to you, the listener, or to the broader market? The aha moment here is that this partnership structure perfectly bridges the gap between raw student innovation and real market capital.
Right, because the students need the money and the corporations have it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about it from the perspective of the corporate sponsors and investment firms. For them, this isn't just charity or good PR. They might call it corporate social responsibility, but functionally, it is a highly organized, aggressive talent scouting operation.
Wow. So they're essentially using this competition as an early access pass to poach the best young founders before their competitors do.
That's it. They get to see who the smartest, most resilient innovators are, pressure test them for 6 months, and fund their ideas before those ideas ever hit the open market. It's a brilliant strategy for everyone involved.
Okay, let's unpack this. We know who is running it and why the corporate world cares, but let's get into the structural meat of the program itself. The sources refer to this as the quadruple pipeline. It's 4 progressive stages of value creation. Can you walk us through the actual scale of this operation?
The numbers here are essential to understanding the gravity of the program. It's essentially a massive, ruthless funnel designed to refine raw potential into investor-ready ventures. Stage 1 is called exposure. They are casting a huge net, targeting 1,000 students for awareness, outreach, and registration.
Yeah.
It's all about generating initial interest and finding the ambitious ones.
Right, casting the wide net. And then they move into stage 2 documentation and screening. According to the guidelines, out of those initial 1,000 students, they expect 300 to 500 actual applicants to submit their ideas.
Which is a big drop-off already.
Huge. The judges review the concepts, check eligibility, and drastically whittle that down to just 150 shortlisted students, which forms roughly 30 venture teams. So Wade isn't cutting 85% of the initial pool right out of the gate a bit harsh. What if they're discarding brilliant innovators who just aren't good at filling out standard applications?
It is a brutal cut, absolutely, but it's a strictly necessary one. If you look at world-renowned accelerators like Y Combinator, their acceptance rates are the low single digits.
That's true.
The goal of Stage 2 isn't just to judge the idea, it is to judge the execution. If a student can't follow the precise application guidelines or articulate their vision clearly on paper, they're going to get eaten alive when they sit in front of real investors.
Oh, that's a really good point.
This cut ensures that only the students who are genuinely committed and organized make it to Stage 3, which is training and mentorship.
Okay, so the remaining 150 students, these 30 teams, what happens to them in Stage 3?
This is where things get serious. Stage 3 is dedicated to rigorous business validation, deep weekly mentorship, and preparing them for their preliminary pitches. They are pressure testing the businesses to see if they can actually survive in the real world.
And that all culminates in Stage 4, the final demo day. This is the crucible. But looking at the numbers, out of those 30 teams that go through all that training, only 20 to 25 finalist teams will actually step up to the stage to deliver investor-ready pitches for actual funding.
Right.
So 5 to 10 teams just get dropped right before the finale. That has to sting.
It does, but the real secret weapon in this document is the underlying philosophy of this funnel. The goal of AfcaSPIH isn't just to crown a single winner and send everyone else home empty-handed.
Okay.
The structure ensures that even if a student doesn't win funding at the end of Stage 4, or if they get cut right before demo day, they have fundamentally benefited. By surviving the pipeline, or even just making it halfway through, every single participant leaves with validated skills, newly forged entrepreneurial confidence, and vital market exposure.
That's incredibly valuable on its own.
Exactly. They've learned how to build a business model, how to pitch, and how to accept critical feedback. That is a massive win. You are taking a raw student and turning them into a capable founder, funded or not.
I love that perspective. It takes the pressure off just winning the giant check and places the actual value on the process itself. Now, I'm looking at the timeline for this pipeline, and it is intense. It's a rigorous 6-month sprint running from January to June 2026.
It's very fast-paced.
Yeah, it reads less like a school project and more like a high-stakes Silicon Valley boot camp. Walk us through these phases because the mechanics here are fascinating.
It starts quietly with Phase 0 spanning January and February. This is strictly behind-the-scenes setup. There are no public applications yet.
Just laying the groundwork.
Right. The organizers are establishing the systems, locking in the judges, setting the governance policies, and solidifying the university partnerships. It is the invisible foundation that keeps the whole thing from collapsing later.
Which sets the stage for Phase 1 in mid-February, the call for applications. And I want to highlight the specific requirements they ask for here because they are very modern.
They really are.
They are not asking for a 50-page dusty business plan filled with theoretical projections. They want a 90-second video pitch and a 300-word idea summary. That's it. That honestly sounds way easier than writing a 50-page document.
You would think so, but it is actually much harder. There's a famous quote often attributed to Blaise Pascal. I would have written a shorter letter, but I did not have the time.
Yeah.
Forcing a student to distill their entire sprawling vision into just 90 seconds and 300 words tests their clarity of thought immediately. If you can't explain your business simply, you do not understand it well enough. It forces them to identify the absolute core value of their idea.
Here's where it gets really interesting. In March, we hit Phase 2 screening and preliminaries. Those applications are narrowed down to the 150 students we talked about, the 30 teams. And then they have to survive online preliminaries, which require a 5-minute pitch and a 10-minute Q&A session.
Yeah.
10 minutes of Q&A sounds like an absolute interrogation.
It absolutely is, and that is where the real pressure testing happens. 10 minutes with experienced ecosystem partners is a lifetime when you're up on a stage. The judges are going to poke holes in their assumptions, test their market knowledge, and see how they handle stress.
Seeing if they crack under pressure.
Exactly. Do they get defensive? Do they crumble? Or do they pivot and listen? That gauntlet cuts the field down to the final 20 to 25 teams.
And those battle-tested finalists move into Phase 3, running through April and May. This is the mentorship and venture development phase. The guidelines state this involves weekly mentorship sessions focusing on hard skills.
Real practical skills.
Yes, we are talking business model validation, actual revenue and cost modeling, and crafting the perfect standard 5-slide investor pitch deck. None of that theoretical fluff.
Exactly. They aren't reading textbooks about economics. They're building functional financial models for their own ideas. But all of that preparation, all those long nights in April and May, are just leading up to the absolute climax of the program in June. Phase 4 is officially called Expedition and Demo Month, and the schedule they outlined is just packed.
I'm looking at this June sprint, and honestly, it sounds exhausting in the best way possible. From June 15th to the 19th, it kicks off with an intensive mentorship sprint. Then right after that, June 20th and 21st, there's an actual expedition and team-building experience. What is the point of that? An expedition? Like, are they going camping right before the biggest business pitch of their lives?
It sounds counterintuitive, right? Why take them out of the boardroom? But look at the psychology of startups. Most new ventures do not fail because they have a bad product. They fail because the co-founders end up hating each other under stress.
Oh, that is such a true point.
Taking these students on a physical team-building expedition is a deliberate strategy to pressure test their human dynamics. They need to know these teams can communicate and support each other before they put them in front of major corporate suits.
That makes total sense because right after the June 22nd through the 25th is entirely dedicated to corporate immersion and networking. They are taking these newly bonded teams and throwing them directly into the corporate ecosystem.
Precisely. They're getting them used to the environment. Then on June 26th, everyone finally gets to take a collective breath with a participant celebration and networking lunch.
A quick breather.
Very quick, because they cannot relax for long. June 27th is the grand demo day. That is the main event. Investor Ready pitches live, judging everything on the line. And finally, June 28th wraps it up with the awards and media coverage. Phase 5 then follows throughout the rest of the year with ongoing sponsor visits and continuous brand visibility.
Now, you mentioned the awards, and I think we really need to talk about the goods because the stakes here are very, very tangible. We are talking about a massive total prize pool of GHS 150,000.
That is a lot of capital.
It is. For context for our global listeners, GHS stands for Ghanaian cedis. What does a prize pool like that actually mean in this context?
It means massive seed capital. In the local market, 150,000 Ghanaian cedis is the kind of runway that buys a student startup significant time. It buys server space, it pays for initial inventory, it covers legal fees to actually incorporate the business. It is the fuel required to turn a theoretical prototype into a functioning minimum viable product, an MVP that real customers can actually use.
Let me break down exactly how that prize pool is distributed because they have it clearly mapped out. The grand prize winner walks away with GHS 50,000, a brand new laptop, and 12 months of dedicated marketing support.
Incredible package.
Yeah. The first runner-up gets GHS 40,000 and a laptop. The second runner-up takes GHS 35,000 and a laptop. And the third runner-up gets GHS 25,000 and a laptop. And remember, even if a team is in that final 20 to 25 but doesn't hit the top four, all finalists receive crucial investor exposure and consolation support.
What's fascinating here is how we need to look critically at this setup. When you introduce that much actual capital into a student competition, things can get incredibly messy.
Oh, for sure.
Human nature takes over. People get weird about money. How do the organizers guarantee that this capital actually reaches the students and doesn't just disappear into administrative fees or get awarded based on favoritism?
Yes, the FAQs are very direct about this, and I was genuinely impressed by the guardrails they have put up. To prevent corruption or mismanagement, they have instituted incredibly strict financial controls. First, there is a dedicated separate program bank account just for AfcaSPIH. It requires dual signatories, meaning absolutely no single person can authorize a transaction on their own. Two separate leaders have to sign off.
And if you dig deeper into those guidelines, one of the most critical rules is that there are absolutely no cash transactions allowed. Zero.
Everything has a paper trail.
Exactly. Everything must be done via bank transfer or digital payment so that it leaves a permanent, auditable paper trail. On top of that, they require strict monthly financial reporting.
And regarding the actual competition itself, they tackle bias head-on. The independent judges are required to declare any conflicts of interest up front. So if a judge happens to be related to a student or already mentors them, that has to be disclosed.
Which is crucial for fairness.
Absolutely. Furthermore, all evaluations follow completely transparent, standardized scoring criteria. You don't win because a judge likes your vibe. You win because your revenue model scored higher on the standardized rubric.
That transparency is vital. It tells the sponsors that their money is safe, it tells the partners that the organization is legitimate, and most importantly, it tells the students that the playing field is completely level.
And speaking of the sponsors and partners, they aren't just trusting that this is working based on good vibes. They are measuring real hard impact. The documents outline specific key performance indicators or KPIs that all stakeholders will be monitoring closely.
And these KPIs are entirely outcome-based.
Yeah.
They aren't just looking at vanity metrics like how many likes they got on social media.
Right, no vanity metric.
They are tracking program completion rates to see how many students actually possess the grit to survive the rigors of the pipeline. They are tracking the number of actual legally registered ventures launched. They are tracking the number of tangible jobs created by those ventures in the real economy. And they are also specifically tracking female participation, ensuring that the entrepreneurial ecosystem they are building is genuinely inclusive.
And this momentum doesn't just stop in June 2026. The documents outline a massive post-2026 plan. They are building an AfcaSPIH alumni network, providing ongoing mentor support long after the competition ends, facilitating continuous investor introductions, and publishing long-term impact reporting. It is a true launchpad, not just a one-off weekend hackathon.
If we look closely at that post-2026 strategy, the sustainability of the program is what will ultimately define its legacy. By creating an alumni network and actively maintaining those investor introductions, they are essentially building a self-sustaining entrepreneurial engine for Africa and the Caribbean.
A permanent pipeline.
Exactly. The students who sweat through the pipeline and get funded in 2026 will inevitably gain experience, scale their businesses, and very well become the mentors or even the angel investors for the 2030 cohort. That's how you build a permanent ecosystem.
Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground here today, breaking down this absolute powerhouse of a program. I want to bring this right back to you, the listener. Think about your own learning journey, whether you are fresh out of university currently studying or even years into your established career.
Yeah, it applies to everyone.
It really does. How often do you actually take the time to pair your theoretical knowledge with this kind of intense, mentor-backed, real-world validation? It is so easy to stay in the safe, comfortable zone of studying, planning, and reading textbooks. But the AfcaSPIH model proves that the real magic, the actual value creation, only happens when you force those ideas through a rigorous, uncompromising pipeline and put them in front of people who will tell you the truth.
This raises an important question, and it is a thought I want to leave everyone with today. If this comprehensive, heavily governed pipeline, which combines rigorous skills training, strict financial transparency, psychological pressure testing, and direct investor access, successfully turns unfunded students into active job creators across Africa and the Caribbean,
Yeah.
could this exact framework eventually render the traditional purely academic business degree completely obsolete worldwide? Why spend 4 years in a classroom if 6 months in a pipeline can actually launch your career?
Oh, that is a heavy, fascinating question to ponder. A real paradigm shift for higher education. Well, that brings us to the end of our analysis of the AFCAS PIH 2026 challenge. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep pushing your ideas into the real world, keep learning, and we will catch you on the next one.